So I'll call the meeting to order, which is recent. Roll call.
All right. Shellrock is not here. Mary Lynn.
Aye.
Orchid Onaron. Can you tell me again? Onaron. Thank you. I'm sorry. Robert Davidson.
No.
Ralph Grosswald.
Here.
Daniel Leonard.
Here.
Ethan Aubrey.
Here.
Lisa Knobloch.
Here.
Becky Doyle. Francie Jaffe.
Here.
Susan Bartlett.
Here.
And Hannah McIntyre is here. And we currently don't have a council member, so
All right. Sounds good.
we have a quorum.
So I'll start with our acknowledgements. Is this big enough? Do folks want me to meet? We acknowledge that Longmont sits on the traditional territory of the Cheyenne, Arapaho, Ute, and other indigenous peoples. We honor the history and the living and spiritual connection of the first peoples have with this land. It's our commitment to face the injustices that happen when the land is taken and to educate our communities, ourselves, and our children to ensure those injustices do not happen. And our conclusion statement is the Sustainability Advisory Board embraces diverse perspectives from its members and the public to create an inclusive space where everyone feels welcome to share their opinions. The board asks that all attendees listen and speak with respect and avoid attacks on individuals or specific items. So the main item of, well, what are the main items of business? For today, which we do January every year, is to sorry. Do we need to read?
Do you want to just get around this?
Yeah, the floor situation in this
Oh,
church
no,
is
it's
not. Oh, she's got this. Okay. So we have a handful of just general business items to take care of today. So we have, you got in your packet the rules and regulations. And so we'll review those pieces first, and then we need to re-elect our chair and vice chair, designation of our posting place, and any discussion on the 2025 meeting venue and time. So the first item of business is, did you all have a chance to review the rules and regulations that were included in your packet? Are there any changes that need to take place to that? Yeah.
I have a number of proposals for changes. Most of them are small. In 2B, removal from the board, adding the words including a non-voting member after the third word board. So any board member two absences, or anybody that leaves the board, or any member 4 or more absences within a 12-month period. The regular second meeting of the board, including a non-voting member, would be recommended for dismissal to the city council.
I don't think we have non-voting members, though,
The council.
That's where the council member is referred to.
as a non-voting member.
And we went most of the year without council members.
So a council member is not required to attend board meetings according to their bylaws. So that is not something that we have authority to change.
What else?
Switching around and order of business, numbers 6 and 7. So public invite to be heard would be before general business.
Okay, how do folks feel about that? We had a long period of time in which we put it there so that people could respond to general business items, and then the board could respond during the items from the board. If folks want to move it back around, that is up to your all's discretion.
Even part of the reason why we put it there is so that folks could tune in after work, and that's why we moved the meeting to be later and have some in person as well. Because otherwise people have to be calling in on their commute or.
Was that requested by committee members?
I requested it because I wanted people to be able to come.
I like the idea too, though, that the public would have the opportunity to respond to the day's business as well, so that they don't have to prioritize coming to 2 meetings. to comment on our business? Because if it happened before, then we come to this meeting, learn, and the next meeting you get a comment on.
Yeah, and it's structured so that people hear the general business, there's public invited to be heard, and then in the items for the board, that's the opportunity where you all can bring up anything that the public commented on, if there's something that you all want to pick up and carry forward as a part.
I understand. I think the case for switching would be that usually members of the public want to comment about the general businesses, and if that's before general business, then that could influence the discussion and sort of the action.
I mean, in that case, though, then they could still comment on general business, and we could reopen it in other business, correct? Does that make sense?
They could comment on the topic that are on general business, yes, they wouldn't know the content until that item took place. So, yeah.
The other consideration that crossed my mind last year, just for people to think about, is that if somebody's waiting to speak who's attending, they have to wait through everything.
That is true.
And it can sometimes, you know how our meetings sometimes will go very long, and they don't get that opportunity until very late, so they're sitting through a lot of administrative things, you know, when time's going by. So I hate to see that, but I don't know. I mean, I think Mary's concern may be more important, which is just you wouldn't want someone not to be able to attend because it's a conflict with their work.
Well, City Council has divided first and second call of public invited to be heard for this reason, so we could do the same thing.
That's interesting.
We could also start meetings at 5:30, so 4:30.
So that is also on this, the D part is discussion of meeting venue, that's location, that's time. So if you all want to, we could also put a pin in that piece. We could talk about whether or not you all want to change the meeting time and location and come back to that based on what you all decide. If
That's good.
you want to do that. Okay. Ethan, do you have other things?
Yeah, a few more. Disqualification of members. What happens is a member of the board shall disqualify him or herself from acting on a matter because of personal business or other conflict of interest. So we're adding the words conflict of, clarify that. It's not that you're against it, it's something that you have conflict of interest and disqualify yourself.
I think that's okay.
Which, can you tell me which number it is? 3.
3E.
Does anyone see any issues with that?
Is there any reason conflict doesn't? Because aren't we supposed to be here because we're interested?
Right, yeah, I think that's Ethan's point, right? Like, yes, we're here because we're interested in these topics, so I think that makes sense unless Heather or Becky, is there something I'm not seeing in that? Otherwise, I think that's a,
I think probably it's just the way that whole sentence is worded. Member of board shall disqualify him or herself from acting on a matter because of personal business or other interest. I think it encompasses all of being a conflict of interest.
yeah. I think so, but I think it's also fine to add
Yeah, I
that
think so
sort of
too.
specification.
Yeah.
Okay.
Do you have to vote on that, or is it just a thing?
Did you have other items? We can just
Yeah,
vote
we'll
on
just
all
vote
of
this
them.
one.
Yeah, I got one. For minutes, keep the first sentence the same, remove the second sentence, and add a different section about the agenda. And then add 2 sentences, all board meetings shall be recorded and transcribed using automated transcription technology. The final verbatim transcript shall be reviewed and corrected by the recording secretary to ensure accuracy, with every spoken word by members, staff, and the public fully documented in the minutes.
Are meetings recorded?
Our meetings are recorded, yes. Either by video here or video that we do
Like
through our
the Zoom
Zoom
meetings? Is that not?
Can I speak to looking back at the transcription? That would be my job, and I do not have capacity in my day to do that.
Can you start with the first part? Can you break that up for me? Because I start with the first thing that you said on the second sentence. I didn't catch that.
All board meetings shall be recorded and transcribed using automated transcription technology.
that is, you can do that very quickly and automatically in Zoom. It's just a click, and you can get it done.
Right, it is done that way, but if I have to review it and make sure that all of the wording is accurate, I don't have time to review the video and ensure that the transcription is correct. I don't have capacity in my day for that.
Can we take the first part though? Can we do the transcription?
I think it is transcribed when we do it. I know that LPM is transcribed.
Is it then, is the transcription published with the video or how does that work?
If people click on the closed captioning, it should be there.
Okay.
Can we copy that and add it to the minutes, so there's also,
A transcription.
Transcription.
In the minutes,
I think, is that what you're asking, to have a transcription in addition to a summary in the minutes?
If it's publicly accessible.
our minutes are minutes of action and not all of the discussion. So that would be something that we would need, we've been directed by the city clerk's office to use actionable minutes rather than transcription of the minutes. The Planning and Zoning Commission does it differently because there's a quasi judicial board and their minutes could be used as evidence in a court case or something, but the rest of us all use actionable minutes.
If the transcription is available, and you're saying that it is, if you go on closed caption, and then the recording is available, then does that not make it accessible enough that we're comfortable? Because, the idea of adding the minutes even from a logical standpoint, I'm not sure what the impetus for that would be.
I think the end of this is to include all the substance of this discussion. in the minutes.
But it is available, I mean, I guess I'm saying it is available to people, it should, would it be a compromise to, and Heather, I don't know if this is already in the minutes itself include the link to the recording that includes the
It
transcript?
doesn't, but
There,
I
how's
do
that?
that at the end or
I
something.
think that's reasonable.
Yeah, then that way it's not an extra step for us, it's something that's already there.
If I would support the work of.
Or would it be, would it be sufficient to just say that the meetings are on the city's YouTube page and you can look up the meeting here?
I don't think the YouTube is transcribed.
If you choose on a closed captioning, it is.
And all closed captioning is still quite horrible. I mean, you'll still see references to hypotheses when you're talking about hypotheses and so on and so forth, but
So you see the caption as the video,
Yeah.
but you don't see the transcript if you want to just go quick.
oh no, you can also go to transcript. That YouTube also has a transcript for everything. Yeah. And
So
it's quite horrible, but
if that's sufficient, recognizing that it's not ideal, that we don't have the staff capacity to do a word by word review of the transcript. Right, is that sufficient for those?
Yeah, and it's also our responsibility to see what we say, if it's accurate. If it's not accurate, it's our responsibility to do that.
Yeah, and that is the purpose of reviewing the minutes and approving the minutes, and so if something in that summary of actual minutes, as Heather said, is not accurate, then there's an opportunity for it.
Well, and that's what, if it's in our minutes, we would be required to review
Yes.
this as well, which is.
We also, as staff, review those minutes.
I'd still like to take out the second sentence and have a different section on the agenda.
Can you clarify what you mean? I'm not sure.
The recording secretary shall prepare an agenda for each meeting and shall keep minutes of the proceedings. I think shall keep minutes of the proceedings, but I think preparing the agenda, there should be a different section of the rules and regulations.
Like its own section in addition to the order of business. So the order of business is essentially the standing agenda.
This part where it says the recording secretary shall prepare an agenda.
So what that
How an agenda prepared should be a different section.
You're proposing to add like an item J in this section?
That's
It's
it.
agenda.
I do want to clarify what that is currently is I mean, I generally prepare the agenda. Heather puts that all together in kind of the packet and make sure that it comes to you. That's the role of the recording secretary, isn't like building the agenda or determining what goes on and what doesn't go on. Like that's what I do. So I'm not sure, if you wanna, can you give us more information about what you want like an agenda section to look like?
Sure. The agenda meeting of the board shall be prepared collaboratively by the board chair and the vacancy staff liaison. Board members may submit proposed agenda items to the chair no later than 7 days prior to the meeting. The final agenda shall be approved by the chair, two board members, and the public by the recording secretary at least 5 days prior to the meeting.
And I think we already have that in practice. If people have items that they want to bring or you need to do it from email, Lisa and me to take care of that.
And part of what we do today is kind of set the general work plan for the year. A lot of that gets shifted around because things change. We also have to take into account timing of other projects and plans that want to come to you and council's priorities, which we can talk about later, but
So how about this time we're going to collaboratively with the chair?
I'm going to look at the roles and responsibilities of the chair, because I do want to be mindful of not, you all are volunteers, so I want to look at the duties of the chair. That would need to be reflected in the duties of the chair, which is not currently in there. So the current duties of the chair is shall preside at all meetings, conduct all hearings, and exercise and perform such other powers and duties as may be from time to time assigned by the board or prescribed by the rules of procedure. In presiding at meetings and hearings, the chair shall rule on procedure and the order of presentation. So I think it's possible to do that, but you all would need to agree to have that.
And I just, what was it he was asking to be added?
That the creation of the agenda be a collaborative process with the chair.
Is there not a vehicle now for anybody to submit the items that they would like to be in the agenda to you?
No, that's what Heather was saying. That already is an option, and we go through that kind of when we go through that at the beginning of each year, like what do you all want to prioritize in addition to what we already know is kind of coming, with some flexibility, knowing that other things are going to come that we can't predict.
Because I know when I brought up things about the front legislative council, just mentioned it to you guys, it's on the agenda, there's never been an issue, so I'm just trying to understand, because if there's a real reason, I want to know it.
Is there any, does the staff have any exercisable power to reject the addition of it?
No, you all vote on things. So you can't just reach out to me and say,
Put this on
the agenda if I don't already have good clarity that it's a topic of priority for you all.
Then it comes to
You all set the agenda in a collaborative way. It's just not done necessarily on a month-to-month basis where I check in with the chair and say, here's the agenda, are you good with this? Are there other items to add?
One example is regenerative agriculture, which I believe was voted on unanimously before I was a board member. Have a discussion about that, and then my first meeting said, looked at the schedule and said, looks like September could be the time for that, and then it never happened. So I haven't had that.
It's actually on your work plan for 2025 because we ended up taking 3 meetings to talk about the IRP. So that item had to get home because you all have other
We voted to
priorities.
bump that. That was tabled, so we got the IRP conversation.
Yeah, so you'll see that reflected in the 2025 agenda. I did carry that over because we didn't have time for last year.
Yeah, I'm not sure I'd like to assign it to the chair only because I don't want to bottleneck that work to the chair as well. And institute some kind of new authority that the chair would have over the board generally that we are enjoying handling as a group.
We do always have the items from the board as an opportunity to set the enrollment, and then we have the ability to change the order at any meeting at any time.
for information, goes in to change it to the board may vote to request and board members may proactively seek the submission of information to support a position about this or decision on any issue before them. And though it's up to the board, this may include but not limited to statements and independent evaluations from recognized experts, results from testing laboratories, approved legal or engineering counsel, data studies and reports from governmental, academic, and private institutions, and feedback and insights from community members and stakeholders.
So that's a new section.
That's changing information, which is in the same section.
Can you, repeat that, sorry, I was finishing my notes something else.
Sure. The board may vote to request and board members may proactively seek the submission of information to support a position, hypothesis, or decision on any issue before them. And this is 3H in the rules. This may include, but is not limited to, statements and independent evaluations from recognized experts, results from testing laboratories, appropriate legal or engineering counsel, data studies and reports from governmental, academic, and private institutions, and feedback and insights from community members and stakeholders.
So there's just some additional entities that you were adding to that?
Yeah.
Can you list the added entities by themselves?
The first one, number one, statements and independent evaluations from recognized experts, so that adds independent evaluations. And next to it, the same results from testing laboratories, appropriate legal or engineering counsel, those are the same. And then two more additions, data studies and reports from governmental, academic, and private institutions. And finally, feedback and insights from community members and stakeholders. It also clarifies that we can proactively seek, so we can go to request information, but that's not really like strong action unless we're going out and seeking that information. But we can request it, but if we don't follow up, then nothing happens.
You used the modifier recognized experts, and then I think you had appropriate before one of the others. Is that right? Did I hear that correctly?
Well, that's already in information. Recognized experts is already there. And appropriate legal or engineering counsel, that's already there. So that's keeping the same.
Those are already there.
But my next point is going to be defining recognized experts.
Yeah, that's the issue that I had noticed that. Sure. Yeah.
We discussed it before that we have a definition, so we could define what that is.
Can you go, so you said in addition to the submission of information, what was the other piece that you said?
The board may vote to request, comma, and board members may proactively seek, comma, the submission of information to support a position about this or decision on an issue for them. I know it's not support.
What do you mean by proactively seek? Like a board member could
Like, let's say
reach out to someone or something?
we vote to request an independent evaluation regarding the IRP from NREL, the Energy Laboratory. We can do that within our meeting, but unless somebody goes out, contacts them, talks to them, asks them if they can provide an evaluation, and it's not going to, we need to practically speak in addition to requesting.
I think I'd take issue with board members proactively seeking, because that gives a level of autonomy outside of the board to be representing and acting without approval from the full board. So I would say we at least want to keep it as the board generally. The board could proactively seek new information, but not individual board members.
I don't think getting to the place of requesting the submission of information, and maybe this is a question for legal, and maybe I'll get Becky if you have an interpretation of this. I don't think that we could get to a place where the board would be requesting an independent evaluation. That's different than submitting information that already exists. At no expense to the board, I don't think that the intent would be to say that the board can request an independent evaluation, but somebody would have to pay for that, which then would be the city. And I don't we don't have budget for that sort of thing, so I don't know if I just want to be careful that we're not stepping into a place that if we're requesting an independent evaluation from NREL or something like that, that then commits the city to spend $200,000 to have that study done. So I want to, and I think this language here is a little bit nebulous to begin with, so, but that would be my read, is that we can absolutely ask for things that are already in existence to bring to you to help support your, like, informed decision-making on that, but that wouldn't necessarily open us up. And I don't think we would have support from our leadership to change that, to say that the board could request like an independent audit or assessment or something.
That's correct. And I would interpret the existing language talking about no expense to the board to refer to, sometimes when Cora requests are made, there can be charges associated with the staff time required to assemble that existing information that's responsive to those kinds of requests. And I think this is saying, we would charge for our time to bring together the information that already exists related to that. But I would agree with your interpretation. We can dig into it. Yeah.
So maybe this is super basic. What are we submitting the information to? What is this referencing? To submit it into the proceedings? To submit it into the city council regs? I guess that's what I'm kind of stuck on.
Yeah.
So we have information. We want to expand the amount of information we have, but what is the entity or process that we're submitting it to in this clause?
We're requesting at least
To you.
To us.
As a board, yeah.
Us. Okay.
I don't know the origin of this. So I don't know if there was some other emphasis like to put that here. But I also just wanted to note that I agree with Daniel that any action that's taken on that would be as a board, not as a leader. So you all would need to vote on what, if there's specific information that needs to be submitted, not contacting people individually as a board member, or that be on staff to seek that information to provide that to you.
A board member currently could bring in information that they have access to.
Yeah, and we've done that, in the passive design piece, like Mary brought that person to us to talk about passive design standards and those sorts of things. So if there's, and on the regenerative agriculture one, I know Mary had given us several suggestions on who we potentially engage with for that conversation as well. So,
For clarity, I suggest we remove the submission of gender. Unless I'm missing something there, just to make that read clearer. And since it's not referencing any specific vehicle.
So you're saying the board may request information supporting a position or analysis?
If that makes sense.
I do think this statement in and of itself with this level of scrutiny is a little tricky, so I think, yeah. Is there, so Ethan had other added entities, can you remind me, I'm sorry, what those are?
Data, studies, and reports, governmental, academic, and private institutions. Feedback and insights from community members and stakeholders.
I think the first one is in line with other things that are listed here. My question on the stakeholder piece would be presuming that information already exists, and that's not asking us to go get that information, because that's.
Why do you have a finite list of what included means? Why isn't it just not including but not limited to, and then
Yeah, I mean, that would create
if
some
we see something
flexibility there.
that is outside of what is reasonable, then the answer is no.
That's my choice, to make it as vague as possible, because it gives us the broadest latitude so that someone can't come and say, well, this entity isn't on your list, so strike it. And so I'm almost inclined to
We don't agree with the
all of them.
definition that this one fits under that category that's in your list.
Yeah, I remove all those the specifications.
I would keep them, but I'm okay with adding not limited to.
But adding the ones that you brought forward.
Adding the words but not limited to, including but not limited to.
But did you still want to add the other ones that you suggested? Or are you fine leaving this as is and just adding that to know that there's more flexibility? Okay. Do you folks feel okay about that, keeping it more or less as is? I think the on the table is removing the submission of, so we're just saying the board may request information supporting a position or hypothesis with any issue before them, including but not limited to, and then list what's already there.
Sounds good.
Then for defining recognized expert, for the purpose of information gathering, review, or evaluation, a recognized expert shall be defined as an individual or organization with verifiable expertise in the subject matter under consideration. This expertise may be demonstrated through academic credentials, professional experience, relevant certification, peer recognition, published research, or other credible evidence.
Who makes the decision whether they meet that criteria?
Yeah, that's the question that's come up before.
And since we said
Who makes it anyway?
including not limited to, opens up. You know, we don't need to specify what it's going to be at all. I mean, first of all, who are we requesting this from? You guys. I mean, get real, you know?
Yeah.
And are we going to sit down and talk about
Yeah.
It does make sense to have some sort of guidelines to recognize this as a broad term.
I mean, I guess the way I see it is that inclusion of recognized is that we as in age itself is that as a board, we would decide whether or not to recognize that expertise. And so that's where I think, again, with defining the terms, it doesn't actually expand our powers. It limits it or suggests the limitation of those powers in a given moment. Because right now, we can recognize any expert we want at any moment, but if we put in a clause saying this is what an expert is, we have to follow that guidance. And there may come an instance where we don't want to follow that guidance, but then it's counter to our rules. And so it's for me, I'm always inclined in these situations to lean towards giving us the power to make the decision in the moment and not having text that someone can say, no, sorry, you can't do this. You can't listen to this person today because he doesn't meet your criteria of an expert.
Is it the case now that the board has the authority to determine whether an expert is recognized or not? Is that the case?
Yeah.
well, I mean, let's say traffic, let's say improvements, right? We can say that we have a good traffic report about that particular case, looking at the roads, okay. And then, well, personally, I don't trust that information. That sounds fishy. That's good enough for me to make a decision about that particular information, because I'm an informed person, I have a lot of books about traffic and so forth. So we operate in that level, really. You know, we're not just I don't know, a committee making decisions about experts and then analyzing information and then that's how I feel about it. So that's why I agree with you that to say keeping loose is a good practical way to approach. And whenever we get a report on such, we may have thought, is there anything else? Somebody challenged this report. I mean, that's what I would ask him. So is there a counter argument to this? So that kind of thing goes on.
Previously, we decided that we could not accept public feedback from experts that are outside the city because we couldn't agree on what experts. So this would address that and would open, help the board to receive statement and feedback from the whole world of experts. And one of the choices is very broad. It says other credible evidence, so it's extremely broad.
I think I do want to make the distinction of it wasn't determined that you all could not hear from experts that are outside the city. That was specific to public invited to be heard. And so we do frequently bring in folks that are from outside. The passive solar person is not from the Longmont. And so I think that if it's a subject, a topic that you all have voted on as a priority, it's in alignment with our sustainability kind of goals that our city council have adopted, and there is specific expertise that we don't otherwise have, we have brought that forward. And it is, I think, to your question, Ralph, like, it is a very collaborative process currently, you know, that things are pretty open, you all then get to make the decision. It just has to be a collective decision for you all,
Yeah, I mean, for me, I'm comfortable as long as I know that we have the authority within the rules to be able to determine whether or not this is an expert, because somebody may have an agenda. This is a pretty open board, so I'm not directing this towards any individual, but in the future, somebody could have an agenda, and if the board as a group has a duty, say, no, we're not interested, we don't believe that's a reputable source, then I don't care how the definitions are. Because I think this is a responsible board, from my experience on it, that's going to look for information, not try to shut off information if we think that it's relevant to what we're trying to do. So I just need clarification that that's the case, that we have the ability to do that. We do. Okay. Thank you.
As in my experience, but can you disagree?
Do you want to go through a specific example? Like to see how this rule would work? A specific example?
For how we, I'm not sure, I guess.
Well, like for example, you had concerns about the IRP, the PRK wrote a letter, so we were discussing those concerns. Then there was another community group that had similar concerns. And they didn't have any place to go. They just brought it to city council, but without the backing of the board saying, maybe you should look at this. We got shut down here, was a board member who's not over here, that's not here nor there. And they got shut down because they didn't have a board to bring before them. And so concerns that were backed and endorsed by a lot of community members weren't actually taken seriously by city council. So how, yeah. So how would we deal with that?
I think in that instance, you all make decisions as a board. And so, I mean, we spent a lot of time talking through the IRP and you all's concerns and talked over it when you all discussed how to handle that as a board and made that decision as a board. And I think what you're saying is the structure stands currently to allow for that process to happen. I think if there's, and in that instance, like that would be the avenue for another entity. If you all collectively make a decision that's not in support of that, that's the avenue for folks to take, is then to take that directly to city council. So I think that the way the structure is currently allows for a lot of that collaborative decision making for you all as a board.
And then I think my last point would be going to replace the land acknowledgement with the Pledge of Allegiance. I know that city council meetings don't do the land acknowledgement, but we do have the Pledge of Allegiance.
I didn't know you were going to bring that up, but I have a problem with the land acknowledgement statement because there's a lot of usurpation of native lands going on right now in the purpose of a massive land grab to put in solar installations. And I feel like I have a credit time to do that. So I'd like to at least put that on the agenda to talk about. And it's happening in Colorado.
But just to clarify, this is a statement for our board that we are pledging to do these things. We don't have control of what other government institutions are doing. But if we do, then maybe we should take it more seriously. I have to admit that I get a little weird every time I read it too, because of all the things that are going on. And
Yeah.
maybe one thing we may want to put on the agenda is pay attention to that, and is there something as a board that we want to do? Because now 3 people here today have said, I have a little of an issue with that. I think it's a great sentiment. I don't think that there's much action.
I think we either don't say it or we regularly bring up the things that are in conflict that we think we should speak out about. And one of the things that this board can do is we can recommend to the city council to look at specific issues, to put things on their legislative agenda, and to make resolutions that relate to things that are going on state and nationally that related to things like this. So I personally want to say the Pledge of Allegiance. I wouldn't mind if we did both. Now we're getting into a really cumbersome meeting structure. But I definitely, I have been meaning to bring this up for months, and I didn't know the where and the when, but now here we are.
Could I just make a suggestion to support that? And that is that we don't think about removing it, because at the very least it reminds us every time it's read. And then if we as a board want to make a decision to make some recommendations to council, I would certainly support doing that.
I think that's hearing you say the land acknowledgement statement gives you poor feelings, tells me the statement's working. Is that we are regularly recognizing something that's wrong and recognizing that we're not doing enough to resolve that wrong. And so to me, what I hear is affirmation of, yeah, we should keep the land acknowledgement, to keep that issue present and mindful. And to underline what Mary's saying is that those statements, when those statements start becoming rote, or we stop having feelings about them, or we stop wanting to press city council to do more, that's when we have a problem.
It's useless at that point. Yeah.
Right, then it's performative. But if this statement is giving us the uneasy feeling that we're not doing enough, then I say, well, let's say it twice then. Because that's the point.
I also feel uncomfortable with it because it's not inclusive. It doesn't include all of the class issues, the individuals who came here as indentured servants or in compromising positions, and we basically work to death to create the society that we have. I would rather that we take it off and making this like an agreement between us that we're going to bring these things up from time to time, without having a statement that feels a little controversial to me.
I do want to say that this is the land acknowledgement that was heard by city council. It wasn't intended to be all encompassing. It was intended to specifically acknowledge our role as government, and part of that is our relationship that the city has really intentionally built with Northern Arapaho, and this has been a long process that brought us to a place of having a land acknowledgement. When this board previously voted on having it as part of the agenda, there was a lot of discussion around making sure that it doesn't just become rote. This isn't just a thing that we say. It is to keep it front and center, to make sure that we aren't forgetting about those things. And that it is a reminder for us of the role of government in particular in that historical and present kind of injustice in that. So I do want to contextualize kind of where that came from and how it came to be. It's absolutely up to you all if you want to remove it. We can't change. That is the city council adopted acknowledgement.
Do other boards have this on their agenda as well?
No, I think we should take it off. It feels cringy to me. Otherwise, I might be in the position where I'm going to have to every week say, I get the land acknowledgement statement because it's not inclusive enough and I'm not seeing evidence that we're doing. And I don't want to have to say that, to be honest.
Why not just bring up an initiative that addresses it? You wouldn't have to say it.
Say more.
In other words, let's do what it's saying. Instead of objecting to the fact that we're saying it, we're not doing anything. I'm just trying to turn this into something that's actionable.
Well, so I am too. I'm trying to carry it to us doing it and not having to. I mean, there's many different charges and responsibilities that we have,
that were not, two different populations that were not stated at the beginning of the meeting. And I feel uncomfortable just bringing that one out, especially considering the fact that it's not the charge of this board, we've never done one dang thing in the 6 years I've been on here to specifically address these issues. That's my point.
I mean, I think philosophically as a sustainability board, it's our core mission to return to a sustainable use of the land we're on. I read a lot in the land acknowledgement that there's a lot of indigenous practice and knowledge, thousands of years of society that existed here, without poisoning the water, the air, without starting climate change, and 200 years of what we've done on this land. I don't know, I feel a strong philosophical tie to that acknowledgement that we have a deeper purpose as a board to serving the land we're on, and that it hasn't been served properly by our people, my people that came here.
Was it even decided at one point at the city council and it stopped, or how was it used by the council?
They use it in convening, so when we come together for the first time, it's a newly elected council, they say it then, and they say that sort of ceremonial events, we also have to be basis.
This may be something we need to vote on, I guess. I do have one more comment, and that just is that even though it does make me cringe a little bit for all the reasons, Mary, that you brought up, I think out of respect and honoring the people, these peoples and their tradition, that having it there, and I think it's what Daniel was saying too, that it's sort of like to take that out is even doing less. At the very least, it reminds us every single time we read it. It's up to us whether we then take a step to do something. But to remove it, this is just my perspective, I'm sharing as we get ready to vote on it, is that at the very least, just as Daniel said so eloquently, if it makes us cringe, then it's a continual reminder, and I think removing it is scapegoating. I mean, it's just escaping from the continual reminder. And I also would like to see this board, do something on it, to put this on an agenda to discuss and see what actionable thing that we could do on it. So it's just my thoughts. Because then we're going to get some water, and we got sick of it.
What I think we should do is negotiate a dialogue with the tribes and return land to them and build an indigenous cultural environmental center.
I know a woman who said she's an indigenous in Canada, and she's a community facilitator, and I'd be happy to invite her to have her give her feedback on this conversation, because once again, we're having a conversation with any of the people that were supposedly represented in the room, and I don't want to take up any more time on this without at least
if you want to vote on that, I do want to say one thing, that yes, this conversation is happening, the land acknowledgement was done in relationship, with my understanding, with the lawyer throughout the whole of that long-standing relationship that we have had with them. It was not.
So they specifically approved the language?
I was not directly involved in that process, so I would look for folks that. Yeah.
Why don't we bring someone from that tribe, and if they're interested, to talk to us during the agroecology section?
I want to sit with that more. I want to be really careful about how we do that, because I don't want to do that in a tokenizing way. I don't have a direct relationship with folks. This board has not engaged with folks. That's a relationship that's built over several years. So I don't want to offer that up without a lot more intentional conversation.
And the opinion of one person may or may not reflect the position of a larger group.
Yeah.
So if we could be comfortable that there was a process that took place in the discussion that, it would be nice to know that they actually saw the language. I would feel even better, but, and for us to bring an individual who might have an opinion that is not effective.
And there's been a lot of work, particularly with our natural resources folks. I don't want to speak out of turn because, like I said, I have not been directly involved in that. I just would want to know a lot more before stepping into that space without having that kind of intention and understanding. I think it's on the table for sure. I think there's a lot more that needs to happen before we, as a board.
From a procedural standpoint, if we vote to keep this in now, does that preclude the opportunity to address this later on during the year?
No, I do want to go back to this being a council approved statement, so I don't think it's on the table for us to like revise the land acknowledgement statement, but as in terms of, do we want to broaden it? Do we want, like, I think there are other examples, and I think that we can definitely continue to talk about the concept of what would it look like to have that type of environmental center here. I mean, there's a lot of conversations that we absolutely could still have about what does this look like and what would it look like to do in a way that isn't just being grown and we're saying some words and then we're moving on, with our business, but also then aligns with our other goals in terms of sustainability as well. So no, sorry, that was long-winded way of saying that we can keep it in and we can continue the conversation.
I have the context I was reading.
Okay, yeah, you want to share?
So in fall 2020, I might be pronouncing her name wrong, but Montoya Whiteman, who is a member of both the Cheyenne and Arapaho tribes, was contacted by Eric Mason, who at the time was the curator of history at the Longmont Museum, who's now the director of the Longmont Museum, to discuss the planning of the exhibition of the 150th anniversary of the founding of Longmont. Museum representatives have met with Ms. Whiteman in person, and there's a full research report that was developed that I believe led to the museum proposing a land acknowledgement that was then brought to City Council.
She's from one of the tribes.
Yes, she's a member of both the Cheyenne and Arapaho.
Northern or southern?
I'm looking on her bio page, and it does not specify.
So in terms of operationalizing, as we just said we were going to do, bringing that into different conversations, would it be useful to bring them into our conversation about agriculture and land use in that way?
I don't think that would be appropriate at this moment in time. I think when we have that conversation about regenerative agriculture, I think we can I can definitely put that into, as we have that discussion, who can be part of that. As I mentioned, there's some.
That's what I'm asking, is that work be done to see if there's somebody, some group, that can nominate a representative, or we can engage some kind of conversation prior to that.
I would say we can engage some kind of conversation. I'd be wary about looking for a group to bring into that conversation, because I think there's other work that has to happen in order for that to be done. So, but yes, I think that that's an appropriate place to if that makes sense.
I mean, I think it's important not to otherize our indigenous community. They're a part of our community, and so I think identifying a connection to agriculture, in my understanding, would be misunderstanding much of their concerns. And so I think the question is maybe more of, if you're feeling we need more engagement from indigenous community members, I think that's a door we want to open. Is that as a sustainability board, we want to hear how we can work closer with indigenous folks in our community on how we guide this work.
We could invite them to multiple different places. We could talk to them about energy policy. We could bring them in and ask them about local, about the process of giving feedback on sustainability. There's a number of different things that we could bring them, that we could ask them about. That is very specifically and literally land use. That's why I was saying that's one of the places that we could perhaps open the door and invite in the local indigenous community to have input in a way that there hasn't been an invitation before.
Yeah, and what I'm saying, I think it may be limiting and otherizing to limit the understanding of indigenous concerns to land use.
I'm saying
Yeah.
that that's in our statement. I'm saying it's in our statement. That's all I'm saying. So let's invite for all the different topics that we get into. Let's invite a discussion on water use. Let's invite discussion on whatever it is that we're doing.
This land acknowledgement statement, from my understanding, is specifically addressing the injustice of the land having been taken, and this is an acknowledgement of that. And so, this is a topic we could spend many hours talking about, but my suggestion is sort of to call the question. But I think we should decide. I mean, I've read it many times, and it always, to me, the key, and it's right in there, it says, we honor the history and all, it has all that sort of fluff in there, but it says it's our commitment to face the injustices that happen and to educate our communities. We may want to think about more ways to do that and to ensure that these injustices do not happen again. This is what this statement is about. Now, there's our relationship with, the traditional people that lived here before we got here. There's 100 issues we could talk about, but this made acknowledgement statements regarding acknowledging the injustice, and I personally, my opinion is that I'm glad to be reminded every time I read it about that injustice. It does get me thinking we should be doing more, and I think we should be more.
And that is a signal, right? I'm saying that at every meeting, that that's a communication. We are a board ready to hear concerns from Indigenous folks. We're a board that's ready to hear about if we're perpetrating injustices. It's right there, every single meeting, in our minutes, saying, yeah, this board is committed to reversing those injustices, so come talk to us. And so that's part of it, is of including this as a signal of this is a safe space to have that conversation, to bring those challenges.
And we have fallen woefully short in doing it, that's for sure.
I think it's also, in a sense, silencing other injustices. For example, if you attended or listened to the meeting last night, the city council had people coming from about town saying, we live close to this land, you're trying to take it away and build this industrial thing that we don't want. And are we listening to those people? They're not indigenous, but the concerns are just scholars. They live close to the land and they don't like what's happening.
Yeah, so this brings up my point about there's a lot of economic injustice that, like, for example, if there was a big compost plant built there, there are folks there that may not have the finances to fight it in the way that they would like to, and so are we perpetuating an economic injustice by putting it out of our sight and mind, but in their backyard? It just seems like it's a very limited statement. I would like to recommend that in every meeting we think about how the things that we're doing are impacting persons who may have less of a voice for various reasons, for structural reasons or otherwise, in this meeting.
I do just want to say that I don't think having this here is mutually exclusive of them not acknowledging other injustices that exist. So I think having this is a specific type of acknowledgement. I think Rob spoke to that. It's not saying that it's not acknowledging other injustices that exist, like an exclusion to other injustices. And I think that that's absolutely a really important part of y'all's role, is to bring those voices and those perspectives forward as different projects, plans, programs, topics, policies come to you all, to ask those questions of who is it that is being impacted by this in a negative way? Are there certain groups that are being disproportionately benefited by this? Like that is what we look to you all as representatives of the community to speak to, and for us as staff to do the work to understand where are there voices that are not being heard, how can we bring that forward to this group to make sure that's all part of the conversation when providing feedback, when providing that advice to city council. So to be able to say, Ethan, maybe that there's a group that isn't being represented in this process, and can we elevate that to city council so that they recognize that if that hasn't been recognized. At the end of the day, all these decisions are made by city council, but that is your role to bring those things forward to make sure that it's a part of the conversation. do you all want to vote on whether or not to keep this? And then I do want to make sure you can go back to your question about do we need an agenda section. I don't want to lose sight of that piece.
I move that we vote to continue to implement acknowledgement statement.
Or wait, would the motion, would just the motion be to remove the statement? Since we don't have to do anything to keep it, right?
Well, that's a good point. And somebody has to make the motion to remove it. I'll withdraw it.
Not wait a minute.
Makes no difference, I'm cool.
Is it a double positive? Is that a thing?
It's a valid point, so somebody's gonna have to, yeah, good point.
Is there a motion?
Mary said she'd like to continue discussion. Another time.
So for now, we're leaving it in.
I appreciate this board and the perspectives. I think this was a valuable discussion. Everybody shared their thoughts on it. It at least shines the light and puts the attention on these issues, so thank you.
So how about pledge of allegiance? You said we could add it.
I would like to have a pledge of allegiance. Getting kind of a cumbersome set of things up here. Also the inclusion statement seems really unnecessary to me as well. I would rather we get rid of the inclusion statement and we read that in this meeting and put in the pledge of allegiance. Not that there's a flag here, but.
And that, for context, came out of some issues that we were having in which there was some issues with people feeling disrespected and attacked based on identity and perspectives. And so that was why this was included in there as a reminder for ourselves and for public invited to be heard that this is the expectation of this board, that we all come together and share our perspectives and opinions with respect for others. It's up to you all if you want to continue to keep that, or if you want to. But I want to make sure that newer folks have the context for why that is in there.
My experience of being almost 3 years on this board is that we've never had an issue among the board members of that for people who are not used to participating in this and come from the outside, who may be very charged about an issue. My feeling has always been that having this is more of a reminder to other people than it is to our board. So, that's why I would support leaving it in. To me, I think it's better to say these things than not say them.
Do you folks want to vote on including the Pledge of Allegiance?
Do we need a flag to do the Pledge of Allegiance? Do we have a flag in this room to do that?
You don't need it, but.
Personally, I'm the wrong guy always.
Yeah.
I'm not very comfortable with that person, but I'm not gonna leave the board because of that.
I think there's a deep hypocrisy there too, that, we want to bring Indigenous folks into this conversation. We might welcome an Indigenous person to this board to ask them to pledge allegiance to the American flag is an act of microaggression, disacknowledgement. Not to mention that the flag is used in our community by some in a threatening and aggressive manner. It's a complicated and now, unfortunately, politicized issue.
Well, I object to the use of the logical fallacy of guilt by association to smear the American flag because some people use it in a negative context. That's just ridiculous to me.
So do we have two different things here? One is what, so somebody needs to make a motion about whether they want the inclusion statement removed, and then separately talk about whether we want to do the Pledge of Allegiance. This is like two separate issues.
I think the removal of the inclusion statement was a suggestion, not a motion, so I don't think that's on the table as a motion. I think the motion is to have the Pledge of Allegiance. So for all in favor of adding the Pledge of Allegiance,
I think we need a second. We have.
oh, sorry. Yep. Is there a second?
I'll second.
All in favor? All opposed?
I was
abstaining?
abstaining.
Okay. So that motion does not carry. Do you all want to does anyone want to make a motion to remove the official statement? Ethan, did you have anything else on your list before we go back to the agenda piece? Okay. Can you remind folks what so I think we did come to an agreement on each. We came to an agreement on each. Go back to where. Minutes. Okay, I think that was regarding G. So I think, do you want to propose a new section regarding did we decide not to move forward with changing the agenda because we decided that was already a collaborative?
I thought you did.
Okay, so there's no changes to G, you're good with leaving G as is?
I like it. Do you have a motion? Well, I think we already discussed that thoroughly.
Okay, all right. So I want to go back to the two other things that I want to make sure if we have a motion to modify 3E to add conflict of in front of interests, and 3H to remove submission of in front of information and add but not limited to after include.
I think there was one on 3G about adding the, all meetings shall be recorded and.
I thought we decided that was already happening.
Okay.
I think the decision on that was just that.
Okay.
So I move to add conflict of
In 3E.
3E. And then, sorry,
You can say so moved.
I move.
You said it.
Okay, all in favor?
We'll need a
Second.
Great.
Second, I'll second.
Okay, lots of seconds. Okay, great. I think technically seconded by Robert. Okay, all in favor? All opposed? Any abstentions? Okay, and that motion carries. All right, thank you all for that discussion. Okay, so next we have election of officers.
The meeting time.
Yep, that's last. But do you want to jump to that? We can jump to that.
Okay, no.
Yep, sorry, this is just, I'm just reading it in
I'm
order.
curious whether someone has talked to Michelle since she's not here, whether she wanted to continue.
She's not planning to continue after her term is up in June. Yeah. So she will be here until June. We are doing election of officers for both chair and vice chair tonight. So she has noted that because she's will only be here for 6 months, she thinks it makes sense for her to not serve continuing service term. And we have a couple of other people whose terms are up or who are, but can also reapply. Does anyone want to make a self-nomination or?
And I'll just mention for myself that my term is up this summer, and I'm not sure if I'll be able to continue, so I won't be able to split.
Okay.
So
Win you over to another term. Is that what
I mean, you very well could and serve a 6-month term, and then we would just need to revote when you step down if you did not reapply. So that's how that would work if there's anyone that is stepping off in June. Michelle has just chosen to not add herself into that mix because of.
I'm happy to.
I nominate Robert for chair.
Second.
Any other nominations? We want to arm wrestle Robert for chair. Okay. All in favor of Robert as chair? Any opposed? Any
It's a
abstentions?
really prominent position in the
I'll
Fair enough, fair enough. All right, so Robert is our new chair. apologize if your last name is escaping me for a second. I'm like, I should know this right now, and I can't see it. It's gone. It's been a long few days. All right, vice chair. Any self or other nominations for the vice chair?
Nominate Ethan.
A second.
I'm not making myself this.
I'll second
All in,
I didn't want to offend Ethan.
all in favor of Daniel vice chair?
You can.
Okay.
I was like, no. All opposed? That creates with Daniel Leonard, that's sorry. Always long. Okay, thank you all. Designation of the posting place, so our current.
Current is the city's website,
Yep.
or secondary of the bulletin board upstairs.
As the physical, so we do need at least one physical.
Yes.
Does anyone want to propose a changing of the current posting places for meeting agendas?
How about your house?
So nobody can see it. You're welcome to put it there.
Is it,
All
is
of the feral cats.
it include that we would post on social media as well regularly? Is that something we could include?
City clerk's recommendation is the website, and then having a physical location for people who don't have internet, but I don't know.
I'm just thinking, yeah, if we could put out a post about meetings on the city's social media accounts, that might help just build awareness.
I think you can check with our comms team to see if that's something that we can do.
Do you want to do that, Heather? And then
Yeah, I
I
can
think it's
reach
like
out.
an official thing, we can incorporate it. Any other suggestions or changes to the posting place?
Is there, sorry, communications person, the newsletter that goes out, especially with the utility bills, what's the decision process on how content gets added to that?
Straws.
Do you know that process?
Yeah.
Yes.
There is a process.
I'm sure there
Yes.
is a process.
It's decided
Yes.
many months in advance, and
Yeah.
we're switching between the different utility groups. So kind of just
Yeah,
throw it into the mix.
Yeah, there's a rotation, but I don't think we could have it monthly standing, right?
No.
Because there's it's committed space.
Yeah, that's what I thought.
But if you had a big special thing at one
Yeah.
time, we could potentially work it.
Got it. Okay.
You would want to plan
Way
In
in
the months, and yeah, that must take weeks to
Yeah.
print.
or just getting it in the pipeline for development and approval and
Yeah.
all of that.
Yeah, absolutely.
Much easier to get some city line,
Yeah.
like the campus back of the barrels.
Yeah.
Single space.
I mean, the city line would be nice too, listing upcoming meetings. I think that's a key opportunity. One, because it's delivered directly to every household, but two, because that's something we know everyone can access and interact with. So if that's a possibility, I think adding to the city line would be useful.
Francie, did you want to say something?
Oh, no, I was just gonna ask for clarification on whether we want utility bill or something like that. But got there.
Yeah.
Sorry, yeah, I should go, yeah.
Is it? That seems like a possibility. So putting that into motion, do folks want to maintain the existing posting places with the addition of a social media post and city line pending space availability and like the relay from comms, our communications team?
So moved.
All in favor?
Do we have a second?
Oh.
Yeah, we
Sorry. Today. All right, seconded by Robert. All in favor? Any opposition? Any abstentions? Okay. Motion moves. Okay, and lastly, the discussion of the 2025 meeting venue, so do you all wanna change the location?
I know we've talked about it a lot over the years. It feels like a reasonable compromise. I don't think there's anything that works for everyone effectively. But I like the mix that we have of quarterly and get in person. I think the time seems reasonable and it's a balance of the burdens.
I think even we're on the discussion of the meeting venue day and time. And that has changed a lot over the years. It used to be 1:30 to 3:30, I think, and that was shifted because of that limitation for other participation. People, I think, weren't quite ready to go to a full evening meeting. There's plenty of other boards that meet 6 to 8. Because other people that were serving on the board previously had conflicts around that, and so this was kind of a compromise time to allow for folks that weren't to come to public invited to be heard, other folks from this group that were able to get here as well for a long time. And then also the shift of the quarterly person. Excuse me, virtual. So just giving some context, this has evolved over time.
Let's try starting before the average workday, 5 p.m.
I think that was because there were some folks on this board that going later was prohibited, if I am remembering correctly.
And I think we're sensitive to the impact of suicide.
Yeah, I do appreciate that, although I will tell you, it's okay. You all can make whatever decision you want. It is part of our job. We will accommodate that. So please don't let that be your limiting factor if it works better for you all to have a different.
But you guys have already worked a full, you came in at your normal time this morning, you've already worked a full day before this meeting, is that correct?
Yes, I do appreciate that. I mean, maybe not like 10 p.m. to midnight, but whatever works for you all, we will accommodate us.
Is 4:30 an issue for anybody here?
I think people were also trying to avoid like over the dinner hour, so it was like either before or after to give people kind of a chance. Otherwise, folks might get cranky. I'm going to provide you all with some snacks, but just keep that. I think that was a consideration for folks too.
We were a little earlier a few years ago, right?
Yeah, we used to meet 3:30 to 5, and then it changed to 5:30 because our meetings were longer than an hour and a half. And then later on, we changed to 4:30 to 6:30.
Yes, that kind of.
But if it's not an issue for anybody, I can move on, because my wife's birthday is tonight. I don't want to miss anything.
My only worry is that we're here because it does work for us. And so when I think of especially in our conversations about how we bring young people onto this board, a young professional is going to be less likely to be able to get that time off from work to do this. And then of course there's also positions that you cannot take time off work for this kind of engagement. And so that's kind of what I'm thinking about, is that if there's an accessibility issue where if you're someone who can't get off work before 5, you can't join the sustainability.
But as Lisa mentioned, there are people who, might go into work at noon.
Right.
And don't get off work until 8, so.
And I think that's the ongoing conversation. I think Mary, you brought up some things earlier of the accessibility of public to be heard, and so I think that's an ongoing consideration as well. How do we facilitate broader representation of this group without being inadvertently exclusive because of time or location, and also with regards to
Then maybe something we just keep an eye on when we recruit members is making it very clear those members at the time can be changed.
Does anyone want to make a motion about they're maintaining the existing
I
date?
think if we're going to leave it the same, we don't need a motion, but if somebody wants to change it, we need a motion.
I just want to say that when new folks come on this summer, we can ask them. And we can also advertise, make it known that it should not be a limiting factor in terms of applying.
You tell us how to accommodate you.
Yeah.
Yeah, I think that's a good idea.
So I move that we move on.
What's the second?
Yes, is there a second?
We just keep going now.
I thought I was on top of the asking for a second that time, and I didn't need it. I'm sorry, y'all. All right. Okay. Approval of minutes.
I move to approve the minutes.
Okay. Any?
Who is the second?
All in favor? Any opposed?
I'm abstaining, so it's
Okay. Minutes approved. Any agenda revisions and submission of documents? I do not have any agenda revisions, other than to say Ralph will give you this update on Friday. So, okay. All right, general business, and I know Ralph has very important business to attend to tonight, so. I wanted to talk through our 2020.
202.
No, that's not adequate. I don't know if it's not too bad. Let's just say 2005. I am sorry. 2025. Yeah. Okay, so some of you, well, I think all of you at this point have probably seen this before. This is laying out our work plan for the year with the caveat that we can't predict the year ahead. There are things that are going to change and get bumped. It's just trying to get a sense of sustainability is a big umbrella. There are lots of things within that. We can't cover all of them. We want to make sure that you all are spending your time on things that are both known priorities from City Council, that we want to make sure that you all have an opportunity to provide your voice and perspective on as your role of the advisory board to City Council. And also if there are other topics under that sustainability umbrella that you would like to bring forward to discuss and to bring action to City Council, that there's opportunity. So this has been kind of honed over time. Any of this can change. We do have some standing general business items. So usually in January, we have exactly this conversation that we're having now. February, we have our year-end report. So I want to make sure to have time for that. So because we take that to council in March. April is the time that if we know we have summer vacancies, we start the application interview process, and in May we have those interviews and recommendations to make to the City Council. So you all will be able to decide that process and how you want to do that in that time frame. And as we said, we will be doing that this year because we have folks turning off. And then we have a kind of welcome in numbers. It's really easy to do mid-year progress update in the summer-ish time frame. And then toward the end of the year, this has been in flux the last couple of years because the county keeps getting later and later on their sustainability tax application process. And so because we always cancel our meeting in December because of the holidays, people don't typically show up. You all can always revisit that. That's just been our experience over time that we never end up having a forum because lots of people are gone. Did I update these dates? Does this look right? Or did I go to you? Just confirm.
They're 2024.
They are. Okay, I apologize that these are 2024 dates. I will fix I will fix those, but those are the general business items that we know we have to cover this year. Sometimes there are other things that come up in that. And then we have these topic areas that are pretty big buckets. General sustainability, we don't really have anything on that. Climate resilience, which the focus there for this year, as it was last year, was really extreme heat focused. I don't have anything currently. We do have a lot of work happening there, but I don't have anything big like a plan or a specific project or policy that I know as of yet, but I wanted to keep that as a placeholder because I know there is work happening there. Energy, that is a big ongoing topic for us. And we did talk about, especially having the IRP last year, that it would be good to have at least two updates from Platte River to this board to make sure we're maintaining that line of communication and keeping you all updated. So as there are opportunities for you all to provide feedback, do that. I have some placeholder times and months there for Platte River. And then we know we have a couple of things that are for sure coming, so this distributed energy resources and virtual power plant conversation will be coming to most likely in April. That's the thing that we know is coming at some point. It might get bumped around a little bit. And then that you all wanted to have a continued discussion on the passive solar and whether or not there are some code recommendations that you are willing to make to council for consideration. So I kept that on the agenda as a rollover from our conversation last year. There are building code recommendations that will be coming to you regarding building electrification. I don't know when those are, other than that's going to be sometime likely in the first half of the year. So that's a placeholder for now that might move, but that's definitely a big
Will that be coming from?
building services, most likely. So that's been, they lead that, and then Susan with Longmont Power and Communications and myself have been providing support for them. So that's the thing that I want to make sure kind of stays on. I have the follow-up on the discussion on regenerative agriculture. Some folks from code enforcement have an item that they want to bring to you all regarding creating some criteria for more natural landscaping. And then we have the transportation section, which will be wrapping up the transportation mobility plan, and that should be coming to you for an update and a letter of support or some sort of recommendation to council in February. And then water conservation and zero waste, because those are other big priority areas for city council. I don't have any big things that we know are coming as yet. Staff is wrapping up the water efficiency plan that has already come to you, and the zero waste. Potentially, this is not for sure yet. We might be looking at a construction and demolition ordinance. We're looking to get direction from council on that. So if that does move forward, we would bring that to you all as well. So I tried to put on here what we know is happening from staff. One of the things that we don't have on here, but I did want to make sure to pull this up. If you all don't have this, we can make sure to send you the link. This is the existing vision and work plan from City Council. So they came up with this focus on people and place, and then this is their current list of priorities. We do have a new council member that will be appointed shortly, and I'll give you some updates on that. So I do want to just make sure that you all are aware of what the council priorities are, and that being kind of climate action as really an overarching component. Places and amenities. There's some descriptions. I'm not going to read all these to you. Transportation, early childhood, care and education, housing for all, equity, safety, and sustainability, and of course our ongoing core services. And so when you all are thinking about what topics potentially in addition to ones we've already talked about, I do just want to note that council priorities take precedence, and so if they do come to you with something else kind of that fits in here, or something big comes up that aligns with these priorities, we want to make sure that you all are able to engage and provide feedback on that, because those are council's priorities. And then other than that, we have our sustainability, our climate action plan as well. So with that, I will open it up to you all for discussion on if there's anything. I don't want to pack out the agenda too much, because like I said, things shift, things change, new things come up. We don't have a new council liaison as yet, but I do want to make space to say if there's anything that is big and important to any of you all in particular that you want to bring forward. Again, we'll need to vote on that as a group, as something that you want to put on the agenda, and then I will work to add it into the agenda for this year.
I think it would be important to add, keep an eye on housing for all is the priority, but housing in particular. In particular, I'm thinking the coming year, particularly the insurance crisis that's looming, but and is a direct result of climate change. But also be keeping an eye, especially this panel, as we were talking about the passive solar conversation, is keeping a general eye on how strategies to increase accessible and affordable housing are also in line with our climate sustainability goals.
That's right. Making sure that we have that nexus is when we do that conversation. Because we do have a housing board, and so yeah, just making sure that we are keeping in line with the nexus of what housing and although I would say sustainability is everything, housing is important. And I needed to make the distinction that for this board, kind of your scope would be that behind it.
There's a big overlap actually with the housing affordability and the adaptation and resilience.
Yeah.
Especially when you look at the social support systems. And that has a direct implication on the land use and how our codes prevent that kind of cohesion to be established or enabled. So I suggest focusing on that particular intersection, that is to say, what are the items in our current zoning code that prevents not only affordability, but financial resilience of the household, meaning that, I can go on for hours, but one very important aspect I see is that, we created something called residential property. It didn't exist in the history. Property always produced something, and that was the kind of financial resilience that households had. We abandoned that. 100 years ago, a doctor would perform one day of a week from home and then go to hospital. We abandoned that. Our code doesn't allow it. So, but that kind of diversity can be enabled by the code, and if we focus on that, that would be a very direct help for the council to, wait a minute, we don't need these rules, maybe we can change these that enable more diversity and more social cohesion in our neighborhoods. Meaning that I happen to live in 800 and Emory. Kitty Corner is a dentist. I was so happy that dentist was there doing the code because each other, I trust each other. So that kind of thing we lost. And that also relates to the place of amenities because my neighbor is in it for me. But as a planner, we need to enable that. It's our responsibility. We lost it. So that's why I want to bring that up and focus on that part of the aspect now. I'm willing to put my time going to the zoning code and finance of those items discussion.
I think what you're saying to me kind of, so one of the other sections of the topic areas of the sustainability plan is buildings and infrastructure. And I think what we can look at there is more broadly. So we've been talking about building codes, particularly as it pertains to the electrification plan, because that was something that came out of that, but expanding building land use and zoning codes, particularly to facilitate sustainability and resilience would be kind of what you're talking about. Does that touch that?
Exactly.
Yeah, and I think the primary opportunity that, I think there's an opportunity to look at that independent of this. There is, and I don't know, Becky, if you have an update on whether or not the envision, is that 2026 that you're looking at, or do we have a?
Probably we're going to talk about it.
Okay, perfect. So I think one of the biggest opportunities for this group, we can have some of those conversations, and if there's recommendations you want to move forward to council this year, that's an opportunity. I will think about crafting something like that to bring back to you. But also the bigger opportunity is going to be when we do an update to envision Longmont, the comprehensive plan. That's where those things absolutely should be looked at from a more comprehensive.
When does that happen?
That's what I was just asking Becky. So I think maybe 2026, but council's going to be talking about that at their retreat that's coming up in February, and I'll give you all information on that when we get to that.
Yeah, no, I
Okay.
think that's great. Zoom
Okay.
out and there, because it's a lot, total ratio.
Perfect.
Yeah.
And of course, we can add.
Exactly. Yeah, this is just a guidepost for us for the year. Yep. All right. If you all are good with the rest of it as it stands, we'll move on our agenda. Thank you all. Okay, we don't have any public invited to be heard. Oh, I can give it to you, Robert, I'm sorry, as the new chair.
I'm happy for you to continue. You're doing great.
We don't have any other business, so items from staff. I'll actually hand it to Cheryl for an update on the Front Range Sustainability Council.
Front Range, I guess you all got, I think Lisa circulated the invite for the meeting that's coming up. It's going to actually be at the Butterfly Pavilion in Westminster on February 20th. And as I've mentioned, I'm on the steering committee of this council, which is trying to coordinate initiatives across communities of the Front Range. And as I have also mentioned, there's a great disparity between, we have more staff people here than some of these groups, some of these boards have in terms of board members. So what I find is that we are much more sophisticated in a lot of ways, and I'm still trying to ascertain the value of this moving forward. But right now, what we're trying to figure out is how to move towards more actionable things that actually impact people's lives, rather than just having more meetings, more presentations. But regarding the event that's coming up, our steering committee just met in the last week, and Maria Rotunda said to mention that they will discuss at this how nature-based solutions build resilience at the local level and help with our climate action plans, both mitigation and adaptation perspectives, and discuss how sustainability advisory boards can advance this topic with their city councils. So one of the things is we had a meeting, we had a council meeting that was well attended. There were probably almost 30 people there in Boulder before the holidays, and it was a great presentation that was educational, but there was no actionable items there. And so one of the things that the steering committee is focusing on is trying to figure out how we can do something useful. Certainly sharing information is always helpful, but because of people's time constraints, the steering committee is trying to focus on how can we make a change in people's lives, and do that on a collaborative basis across the Front Range. So that's going to be brought up at this meeting. It's not been determined at this point whether or not, right now there's no business meeting that takes place. This is just basically, they're going to get a couple of speakers, and there'll be good food, and there'll be networking with people from other communities. There's been Erie, Boulder, Westminster, I think Lavender, Fort Collins, Longmont. So there's our networking opportunities as well, but certainly we invite everyone who would like to attend that. It would be a nice presentation. And then the other thing is that we've had discussions about Longmont doing the next meeting of the Front Range Sustainability Council. And what that obligates us to is finding a place, selecting a date, which the steering committee will help direct, probably in May, possibly June, deciding on a topic, having a couple of speakers, providing food for people, and doing that. And Daniel had made a very good suggestion. I presented it. I circulated an email to the steering committee about transportation. Some of the steering committee sort of felt it's such a broad topic they weren't sure, but what we came up with was that since we have a meeting coming up February 20th, a general meeting where we'll have representatives from all these communities, that will open the floor at that time. And I will make it a point to present your perspective, and then see what the priorities are, because the whole idea is that this is a collaborative initiative. So we want to get the input from other communities, and if they're interested in transportation or maybe another topic, we'll still have the opportunity to say yes or no before we commit to doing that. So the bottom line is there's going to be a nice meeting. They will have some speakers, nature-based solutions, whatever that email said specifically. That'll take place in Westminster February 20th. And then we'll get some ideas that we can discuss actually, I think we have a meeting the very next night. So maybe at that point we'll have some feedback and we can make a decision at the next meeting if we do want to host one of these meetings and if we want to, if we're happy with the topics that are being recommended.
I do think our meeting is the 19th.
Is it? Okay.
Does that feel too, if that decision was, well, we can check it. We can check it.
I'll check with the steering committee too and let them know, because there's no set agenda, like we have to meet every quarter.
Yeah.
So if it, they felt that to try to get as much inclusion as possible, they would open it up to what the topic is that most people would be interested in. And then they understood that we may or may not be happy with that. So if it means that the council meeting gets pushed back, or we can decide we don't even want to do it, there didn't seem to be pressure.
Okay. Thanks, Rob. Any questions or anything on that piece? Or whether it's just keeping us surprised? And if you can attend that event, it is up, they are requesting an RSVP. It is open to the public.
I will say, having attended all of them, they really are interesting and fun to do. You meet people from other communities doing the same thing that we're doing. The food is good, and the speakers have been excellent. So if you can find a way to come, I encourage you to come, because they're enjoyable. And I think that Maria, who's on the steering committee she's from Westminster, said that a representative of the Butterfly Pavilion is going to do a short presentation as well, just because that's where this is taking place, so that should be fun.
Yeah. Great. All right. Items from the board. Anything that anyone wants to bring forward for tonight? Items from council. So as you all probably know, I wanted to give you a quick update. If people were not aware, our council, the person who was serving as our council liaison was Marcia Martin. She stepped down from her council seat at the end of December. Council is having a candidate forum next Tuesday to hear from all of the folks that have thrown their hat in the ring for that council position. Are they deciding that night? Do you know? Yes. Okay.
Yeah.
And then after that, there will be they will reappoint liaisons for all of the boards and commissions. So at that time, we'll have a new council liaison.
It isn't necessarily a new person, right? They were going to
Correct.
reassign,
Yeah.
so it
Yeah.
could be any.
Yeah, but I think they wanted to have that person in place before then they did their reassignments for everyone. Yeah. So, Becky, is there anything else that you want to share from the conversation around boards and commissions?
Just that, so council had a conversation in their pre-session on January 7th that I think is probably important for you to know about. So their pre-session is a public meeting, but it's not, it's held in this room. So it's recorded by LPM, and similar to how this meeting is being recorded. However, it's not yet available on the website. So when it is, we'll make sure to send a link to that. But in the pre-session on January 7th, council discussed their expectations for themselves and how they are enacting that council liaison role, because there was a wide a wide variety of ways in which that was being carried out by different council members. So they came to a series of agreements, which is why it would be worth a watch. And one thing I think for us to know is that they have agreed that they expect attendance at board meetings at least quarterly from the council liaisons. So just to set expectations that we may not see our liaison every month, and that is due to the various responsibilities that they have as part of their service to members. So just wanted to give you all that update.
Great. So hopefully at the next meeting we will have a new council liaison with these named. All right. Unless there are any other comments or questions that we missed, Robert, I'll give it to you in return.
Is there a motion to adjourn?
Move to adjourn.
Second.
All those in favor?
Aye.
Any opposed? Thanks, everybody.
All right.